good for a bad tire. The rest of it,
So that was a renter on one landing. Torched that tire.
yeah. So we all know why this happened, right?
Then you wonder why you had to pay for it.
Yeah. The rest of this tire looks pretty healthy, but you will see little cracks in here. Totally fine. Totally fine. When you see cord showing, when you see this rope, that white rope showing, then it's time to change the tire. It's still technically legal, but it's time to change the tire because then there's like a measurement, you know, how many cords. The airlines play that game. We don't play that game. These tires are relatively inexpensive. The airlines play that game because they get stuck in a different city where they can't get a tire change. So then somebody's got to go inspect it, measure it, and sign it off that way. There's an inner tube inside. Anyways, that's what's actually sealing the air. But if you felt how thick this tire is, I mean, this is a real thin spot, but over here, it's that thick. We'll put brand new tires on. They'll look like a stop sign right away. Nobody's student ever has their feet on the brakes on landing. Nobody. It's never happened, but I don't know how all our tires look like stop signs. It's a miracle. You know, it's one of those things. You can torch a set of brakes in an afternoon. You can torch a set of brakes in one flight if you get like a guy with big feet. You don't realize his feet are on the, and then you got all the other problems with that.
What's something we should be looking for in a pre-flight when we check the brakes?
Some of them have you're gonna have to talk to your instructor. Or what I'll do is I'll drop some off over here. I'll drop one new one off and a bunch of used ones.
We'll do a video.
Yeah, we'll do a video too. Because you need to know what a new one looks like. You need to know how thick a new one is. On his airplanes, they're all almost the same, new thickness. But some of them have a little wear mark and it shows you, you know, or you just ask your instructor, hey, what does this look like? But they're only about a 1/4 inch thick, and they can go down to about an 1/8 inch or thinner, and they're still okay. Definitely anything leaking from the brake caliper. Any loose bolts at all down there, brake caliper, wheel, any of that area, that's a no-go.
Can you machine the rotors on those?
No,
No.
they're only $100 a piece.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
not worth it. It wouldn't work anyways because they're too thin.
Yeah. Okay.
Some of the heavier stuff, you know, some of your 421s and stuff, they're about that thick. Nobody still does it because you'd have to have a fixture to bolt it up to.
Yeah.
To spin it, to do all that, and you're paying a guy, you know, $150 an hour to do that. That one's still only $300. Modern cars, you can't even do it. They make them too thin now. You throw them away.
Really? I've done them on my.
Yeah, most modern cars, they'll give you a spec to turn them, and it's like by the time you turn it, you're below the spec anyway, so you just wasted your time. And they're cheap. They used to be, you know, on cars and stuff, they used to be hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Now they're, you know, you get the pads and the rotors for $120. Brakes are not expensive, really, for airplanes. They're not terrible compared to, you know, like this $2,000 piece of aluminum. What's very expensive is blowing a brake, because somebody drugged their feet on it and it got hot and it roasted the pad, and you're stuck between taxiways, you know, in Peoria or somewhere. Then it's super expensive. So keep your feet off the brakes. You know, it's real obvious. You can go out there and look at all the airplanes now. And everybody's going to say their students don't land with their feet on the brakes, but how do the tires look like that? Everybody will blame it on crosswind landings. These airplanes are very tolerant to hard landings with the spring landing gear. I have seen a 150 with the gear like this though. It was a lowrider. Cherokees, you used to see. Cherokees, you'd really need to do more hard landing inspections when people have a hard landing, because it cracks the strut attach fittings inside the wings. These airplanes, all these Cessnas are pretty bulletproof.
What about the oleo strut? Is there? I know there's it's too compressed is a problem. Is there too?
You'll know right away.
Compressed
They don't
is a
grow on their own.
Yeah.
That would be for me over servicing it, and occasionally we'll do that in the wintertime if it's 50 degrees. If it's 70 degrees in the hangar where I'm working on the airplane and it's going to go outside to 15-degree weather, and I know I've got warm gas, I'll put it at a 1/2 inch high or 1 inch high because I know it's going to drop. When they're too high, what happens is you can't steer. So those scissors on the back of the airplane, when the airplane, because it's also the same landing gear is used on retractables, they just modified it a little. When you take off, the strut comes all the way down. Those scissors open, and there's a block on the top that stops the nose gear from turning. So when you step on the pedals, the nose gear isn't moving, just the rudder's moving. Because otherwise you'd have a bunch of weird drag out there too, the wheel turning like that all the time. So what happens is it'll get too high. If there's too much air in it, it'll be like that block will hit and you won't be able to taxi. So you'll have to give it more throttle to get it to compress down. You'll know right away. So no, if you can taxi it, it doesn't have too much. Unless you can't see out, unless you can't see over the dash pad.
Mm-hmm.
So, we don't have any Pipers, so there's no point talking about Pipers. Cessnas steer with the brakes though. You need brakes to steer with them. Because it has to cause that nose wheel to snap over. So, you're tapping the brake. Too low, people could get in trouble. But you're gonna call and you're gonna say it's too low, and I'm gonna say, no, it's fine. Just be careful, pull back on it. We'll service it tomorrow or something along those lines, depending on how much chrome is showing. No chrome, no go. We can't, when there's no chrome showing, that prop's that far from the ground in certain instances. So, and then we're completely wiped out. Just send a picture, just ask if you're, I shoot for 4 fingers, but yeah, a lot of times you see much less. And it's not as easy as everybody thinks. You just come out and juice it up. You gotta take the cowling off in order to put a little nitrogen in it. We're gonna see this, it's gonna happen. They're all gonna go flat, they're all gonna change, they're all gonna have problems until we settle into winter. Because we've got that expansion and contraction going on. And it's just a thing that's been going on my whole life, and you just fight it until winter settles in. Because you get 75 degrees, then you get 15 at night, then you take it out, and it's not like you're nice to it, you're just putting it out in the sun, you're taking it out and you're beating on it, you're trying to make it fail. So let's go do takeoffs and landings with it and see if we can get it. Now we've got a piece of chrome that's shrunk down. We've got a piece of steel and a piece of aluminum. They both expand at different rates. So you've got the chrome is steel, and then the housing that it goes into is aluminum, and there's a rubber seal in between there. So, take them both and put them in the oven. It's like trying to cook a potato on a steak. The potato's still gonna be raw and cold, and the steak's gonna be, cooked. So that's why we see that there's just no way around it. Move to Florida. Then we can deal with all the corrosion problems. So,
How do we go about documenting squawks? Is it all communication, or if we have issues as far as this is a problem and it's been signed off, this has been checked, things like that? I've got a question on that from examiners and stuff.
No, yeah, you let us know, and it will get taken care of. If it's not,
who does he let know?
we're actually in the process right now of Flight Schedule Pro. We're actually transitioning to the entire thing going on Flight Schedule Pro. We're getting rid of our internal Access database, and everything is going to go on Flight Schedule Pro. Billing's going on there, maintenance is going on there, scheduling is going on there. It's a big subscription thing. We've been doing with them. Actually, I've already signed up for it. I'm just playing with it right now to figure out how it's going to work. Everything's going to be on there.
Okay.
So squawks, whatever.
Got it.
Yeah, I don't want to get 500 phone calls. I don't work for him. He hires my company to do the maintenance. But ultimately, if it's something stupid, oh, hey, the door fell off this airplane, you're going to tell him and he's going to call me and say, we got to put the door back on this airplane. If it's something simple. This renter had this weird noise or whatever. This student had this. Just give me the guy's phone number. It's just easier to cut him out of it,
Yeah.
But call him first, whatever channel he has. But I can easily look at the squawks too in there once you teach me how to work it where it's going to be.
We'll make it Randy proof.
Yeah. Randy doesn't do technology too well.
Yeah. Just things like screws or small rivets sometimes.
Send a picture and get a hold of
We
it.
don't document it.
How do you want to publicize your number?
You can put it in there any way you want. It doesn't matter. Everybody's going to call anyway, so.
You like 2 a.m. drunk calls?
What's the difference? No, none of those.
No?
Yeah. Unless you're, going to give me winning lottery numbers or, your checking account number or something along those lines. So yeah, anytime anybody has a question, and I still get calls from people that were flight instructors for other people years later, hey, I'm flying somebody's bonanza. What do you know about bonanza? What's wrong? And a lot of it can be fixed over the phone, very, very simply. Well, that's not an issue. You just need to take care of that when you get back, or never. Live with the noise.
What hangar are you out of?
My shop is down at Bold Field, 20 miles straight south of Midway. So I just come here just to do his stuff because I feel bad for him. So, but yeah, there's not a real good GA presence for maintenance here. So, because everybody wants to go where the money's at. I tried that whole thing with the jets, and it's too it's a stressful situation, because you do an inspection, you got a 40 man-hour inspection they want done in 3 or 4 days. And so now you gotta have 5 or 6 guys. When you don't have an inspection, you still gotta feed those 5 or 6 guys. So, they can only sweep the floor so long. And then, well, we gotta go get GPSs taken care of, so we're just gonna have them do it up there in Rockford. Like, wait a minute, we were counting on that, So, and I can pick and choose my customers. There's plenty of people that I don't wanna work on their airplane for any amount of money. So it's like, it's just not worth it, Some people can't be satisfied. So you see that a lot more in this industry, probably than you do in the car world, because people just drop their car off, it's broke, fix it, Here, people make a lot of modifications to, I want this, I want new interior, I want new GPS, I want this, I want these modern instruments put in. Those are modifications we can make. We can't just go start changing things on engines and propellers and stuff like that, unless it's been something that's been tested and proven. That's why we're stuck with this. But we know about this, and that's the thing that Jim and I were talking about. We got to start having these talks with people, because we know about all these problems. It's not going to get any better. Like I said, the oil cap thing, it makes us look stupid, because nobody checks it after they fly. It came loose because they didn't put it on correctly. And then somebody goes out and thinks we have a massive oil leak and we're not taking care of our fleet. Like, obviously, we wouldn't let somebody rent an airplane or go do dual in an airplane with a massive oil leak. Then you got to track down who flew the airplane last. But if we just teach them how to put the oil cap on properly, we don't have to do that. Can prevent a lot of problems, but it's a lot of time to do that. I mean, we probably only covered a quarter of what we should today, and we've been here for a couple hours already, right? So we should probably start doing something once every 6 weeks or something, or once
We're gonna do a lot of little videos.
Once a quarter, a lot of little videos too. Yeah, the preheater video, we got to get that out next week, because we don't know when it's going to drop, and all of a sudden we're going to need it, and that should be something short and sweet, and that somebody can watch every time. Maybe that'd be the mandate. They watch the video every time they use the preheater.
Yeah.
Just walk it through. We'll make it nice
Absolutely.
and slow. Push this button, do this. We haven't had any catastrophic things go wrong. We had somebody put the preheater hose in where you check the oil last year. I'm not sure. They never complained they didn't get the airplane started, but I'm not even sure you're aware of that one.
Which one is this?
They preheated the airplane through the oil door.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, takes longer. If you have stock in a propane company, I guess. Apparently they got it going. So, because we found that on 100 hour, like, what the only way something here could be melted here is if this happened. So,
Hey, can you talk just briefly about the problems you've seen since COVID, and with the COVID parts, and the cheap Chinese crap that was going on with the magnetos and
yeah. So like Lycoming, a lot of engine I can overhaul an aircraft engine legally and just fine. I could probably do it for, like, let's say an engine that's $25,000 in a big name shop. I could probably do it for 17 or 18, so then figure out what my labor is. So you figure, $4,000 for labor. I'm not that much cheaper than the big engine overhaul shops, but I don't have a warranty. I mean, I would give you a warranty, but who am I? That doesn't help in selling the airplane. They want to see it a big name engine overhaul shop. The big name engine overhaul shops only use the manufacturer parts. They don't use aftermarket parts, like AutoZone type parts. There's very few of that stuff available, but they're in trouble now. They haven't produced, Lycoming hasn't produced any parts in 3 years. I mean, they produced some, but not a lot in 3 years. So a lot of those engine shops are forced to put engines out with, I wouldn't say subpar parts. They still meet the FAA's approval, but they're subpar. I'm not taking a sampling of 30 parts and testing them, because you can't even get 30 parts. You can't get batteries. You couldn't get oil filters. Getting oil filters is like a drug deal. People catch you on the side. Hey man, you got an oil filter? Like, oh, I'll give you $100. Oil filters went from $17 to $50, and people don't care. They pay $200. You couldn't get an oil filter. The airlines were getting oil filters deferred, special permits to get oil filters deferred on changing them, because they still need to fly these airplanes. They still got to pay the mortgages on these airplanes. So a lot of stuff was rushed to production, and we're seeing some of that stuff bounce back now with the aftermarket engine parts. There was rumors that we didn't have some of the right additives in some of the oils that we should have had, because they couldn't get it, but they still needed to keep producing oil. I didn't test any of this oil before and after, but I'm seeing things go wrong that didn't normally go wrong. We had a rash, everybody's had a rash of bad cylinders lately. But we're not putting Lycoming cylinders on, we're putting aftermarket cylinders on because that's all we can get. You can't ground an airplane for 3 years. All these engines, when they're rebuilt, are dyno tested. They run them in a cell. So it's not like, we're gonna put a new engine on and it's gonna blow up on somebody on the second flight. They torture test them a little bit at the manufacturer, at the rebuilding facility. There is no such thing as buying a new aircraft engine. Like when we take one off, we put an overhauled one on, they're anywhere from 25 to 40,000. A new one would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 70,000 if you could get one. All new, like never been overhauled, never been touched, all virgin metal. And you might wait 5 years to get one. It's just never been a thing because nobody paid double for it. They all just went the overhauled route, which is going to be the same tolerances as new. So there wasn't a lot of these parts in stock. There's probably, only 8,000 airplanes flying around here in flight schools in the country and stuff that have a need for this one line of engine parts, but it's all your flight school airplanes. It's not worth it for someone else to jump into the industry and say, hey, I'm gonna start making this part, because how many are they gonna sell? They did make a lot of the airplanes. That's another thing why you see so many old airplanes. Like in 1978, Cessna was building like 7,000 or 8,000 172s a year. I don't know what they're building now, 300-400 maybe. And they were building 172s, they were building 175s, they were building 177s. They were building all the stuff at the same time. And then the market got flooded. And then, like the last 172 was like an 82P model. And I think that year they maybe built a couple hundred. And then they didn't build anything again until 97. So that's why all these parts are in demand. They fit all these airplanes that all the flight schools have. So it's been a big battle. Where it used to be you'd pick up the phone and you'd call 3 people and see who has the best price. This is the part I want. And now you call 36, 40 people?
Yep.
And nobody even has the part.
Yep.
So, he's got a guy doing nothing but that in the office. I can't afford to have me sit there and do that, and nobody else can have me not work on their airplanes because I'm unsuccessfully searching for parts all day long, COVID hit aviation later than it hit everybody else because there was surpluses on the shelf. Nobody ran out and went and bought a whole bunch of these at $2,500 a crack, and said, oh, I better have those in stock. I wish we would have, because I had some in the back of the truck maybe 6-8 months ago, and the guys were like, I didn't even think there was anybody at the Schaumburg airport, and the guys were coming out of the T-hangars, hey, where'd you get those? Because it's real obvious what it says on the box. But where'd you get those? I'll give you 10 grand for them right now. I can't. Like, I had them on order for 2 years. So we've been okay. You've done pretty well, but he's had a good stock. He had a good stock of parts to begin with. He's got a 150 engine always out for overhaul. He's got a Skyhawk engine out for overhaul. He's had a good stock of parts. That's why. Otherwise, you'd have been down for quite a long time. So, and then, the parts people do give you preferential treatment if you're running a business and you need this airplane to fly versus you're the guy that flies 30 hours a year,
Well, we've got good vendors.
Yeah, we get good
They like
vendors,
us.
but they all can charge whatever they want now.
Yep.
So it is definitely a battle that we never thought we'd have to deal with. We bought a battery for an airplane yesterday, and we were all excited that they had it.
It was only $250.
Yeah, I know.
And they actually have stock.
Yeah.
You couldn't get a battery, you couldn't get oil filters.
No, you couldn't get anything, which sounds crazy. Like, well, you just go to AutoZone and get a battery. No, you can't. There's another thing we need to talk about, batteries. Airplane batteries are junk. They are garbage. They are like something you put in your kids' little, what are the little plastic cars the kids drive around in? That's about how much power they have. They're designed to be lightweight, and there's 2 manufacturers of batteries. They're designed to be lightweight and start the airplane and maintain the electrical system. That's it. Car batteries have been better for 20 years. I wish we could put a car battery in. They also weigh 3 times as much. So we're at the limit of that. So that's the problem too. Don't go out, try to start the airplane. It's cold out, then decide you need to preheat. You probably don't have enough battery power to get it going at that stage of the game. Then he's got to pay me to come out. Usually it's always on a Saturday or something. I got something else going on. Take the cowling off, charge the battery. When the battery runs down low, the batteries will freeze and fail. So if you have a battery that runs low and then it sits overnight, usually it'll be toast. The 24-volt batteries in the Skyhawks are $800 or something. So, and they last about 3 years if you treat them real nice. So don't run the batteries down in the wintertime. Don't run the batteries down ever. Master on your pre-flights. I haven't seen it too much. You guys leave beacons and stuff on them.
Yeah, we learned our lesson.
So,
Beacon and navs on.
It's
all
pretty
the time.
obvious, you know, when you see, you look over there and there's an airplane lit up and you don't see any legs. You know, okay, something's going on. So I'll walk over and shut it off. Doors, 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 doors. Close the door, and then, you know, maybe it looks like it's closed. Give it a little like that. If it pops back open, you gotta slam it hard. These airplanes are bent and tweaked, and, you know, I mean, we all have been in those airplanes with those student pilots. We know what they do to these airplanes. So it's not gonna latch with one finger pushing it shut. What's he looking at you for? So give it that. Doors are stupid expensive. Door hinges are a couple $1,000 when you can find them. So what happens is, well, what's the big deal? I left the door open. Well, it starts sailing around in the wind, and it smashes into the strut, and it cracks the inside of the door. It happens all the time. It's just a notorious problem in flight schools. You wouldn't walk away from your car in a parking lot not knowing it was latched and leave it like that. So don't do it here. And I hate fixing doors. That's the main reason. Because they've all been fixed a million times because everybody leaves them open. So, yeah, I mean, some doors you can do serious damage, like immediately. You know, I mean, it's, okay, now where are we going to find $6,000 worth of parts? The sundowner doors are real expensive. The 172 doors, usually the hinge, the pin that goes through the hinge, usually that breaks, and you can get by with a hinge, a pin, and straightening the hinge. Don't do it though. So I drive down all the time. I'll be the last one here sometimes at 10, 11 o'clock at night because I want to work on something or do an oil change or something on the line, or it'll be easier just to do things on the line. And I'll be the last one driving out, and I'll close the doors on 3 airplanes. And it's just, it happens. I'm not saying anybody's doing it intentionally, but treat it like your own car, you know, your own front door. You know, it's pretty obvious if it latches, if it doesn't, but just be a little rough. Just give it a tap, see if it's gonna pop right open. Fuel, doors, batteries, oil caps, oil caps, oil caps, oil caps.
We'll
Don't-
do a video on oil caps.
Don't over tighten the threaded ones, and make sure that style turns all the way and stops. We've been pretty good though. We haven't had any oil cap problems in at least a month. So, but then it seems like when it happens, we get a rash of it happening, and then nobody knows who did it. It's usually just going to be 1 or 2 people that didn't understand fully how it needed to work. So nobody's doing any of this stuff intentionally. Obviously, nobody wants these airplanes to be down. It's not beneficial for anybody when they're down. Lights. Sometimes, you know, we have a light that doesn't work. Don't make a big emergency about it at 10 in the morning when you're going flying because you have a burnout nav light. We see things like that. Small stuff. If he gets that system up and running, you know, I'll hear something. Every now and then an alternator will go out. And then someone will tell me something like, oh yeah, is that what that squealing was I heard the last 7 times I flew the airplane in my headset? Well, it could have been, but if you don't tell someone, you know, I'm afraid now the phone's gonna ring off the hook nonstop, but, you know, in theory this is gonna save me phone calls and save me middle of the night calls and all that. So, too bad we only have 12 people here. We'll see what we can do about doing something, you know, before the holidays maybe, or just after the holidays, you know, get everybody together. We gotta get some preheater videos going, things like that. And then just feel free to call with problems. Call from the airplane, usually. Don't bother to come back inside and shut the airplane down, because like I said, a bad mag, usually I can fix it before you can even walk inside. I can tell you, run it up this way. And then, if it runs up and it is bad, I can usually tell over the phone if it's a bad mag. You know, if it's a bad plug or if the cylinder went bad. Then I know what to bring or who to send. You know, if I got a guy at Schaumburg Airport, I can send him over just to clean the plugs. But if I know it's going to be a bad mag, well, we're going to stop and pick up a mag on the way. Wish we could stock a lot of that stuff. We have, those magnetos look the same. They're totally different. They're slightly different degrees and things like that. So we have, you know, 7 or 8 different ones. on all the airplanes. Left and rights are different. What they talk about, one of these should have it. What they talk about the impulse coupling, when you turn the prop, if you guys ever turn the prop and you hear it go like this, you hear that click noise when you turn a propeller, that's this. This, if I could turn this fast enough and have you put your finger in there, you get one hell of a shock. This here spins. Propellers turning, propellers turning, propellers turning, propellers turning. This is building up energy, because if the propeller if we just turn this magneto like this, it's not going to make enough hot enough voltage, hot enough spark to start the airplane. So this is spooling up, spooling up, spooling up, and then it lets go, bam. So it'll give it a shot of spark to get it started. Then these weights come in and retract once it's running. These are things that are inspected on at like a 500-hour interval. These are things that fail. Sometimes you have one that doesn't start, and then you'll see me turn it through, and like, oh, it didn't click. Like when you saw me do it the other day, you know, when I was listening for that click. Yeah. So that's just, you know, a quick way of doing it. Well, before you even bother running it up again, let me make sure it didn't fail one of those. So a lot of things can be solved over the phone, or I can have you guys do something for me, rather than driving out and figuring out, oh, this is just a foul plug. Then everybody's upset, and sometimes we lose a whole day or day and a half of flying, depending on how fast I can get here. So I've got an airplane taken apart in the hangar. It would probably be all the same stuff if anybody wants to see anything. The wings and everything are all put back together, but it's the engine's apart if anybody wants to see anything. I don't know. Anybody got any questions? I'm sure we'll think of 20 things we should have told everybody about common problems as soon as we leave tonight.
You know, I'll solicit via email.
Yeah.
So we can do different videos and different discussions.
Right. Some student took me out to show me some loose piece of caulk or something that was non-existent by the time we got out there. Like, well, I swear it was right. You know, all those wingtips, those are plastic, those are cosmetic. We don't put them on brand new. Every time there's a little crack, we'll stop, drill the crack, we'll fix it, because they're, you know, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a piece, and they're just there to look pretty and hold a nav light. And they're going to get cracked and beat up again. These are not airplanes that are greased in every time, have perfect landings, and these are flight school airplanes. So, but he's constantly spending money. He's constantly trying to make them better. We're doing interiors and GPSs, and I'm sure that he's going to have to take a nice vacation here pretty soon, because you got to have a lot of credit card points. So, the aviation companies alone, from fuel alone.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, call anytime. See if we got any problems. Ryan's been around what, a couple months?
Yeah, like 3 months now, I think.
And can I usually resolve your problems over the phone?
Most of the time, yeah.
So, just call. Don't get pissed off and leave and say, you know, this, and then take to social media that, you know, we went and there's air oil all over the airplane. Well, wait a minute, let's figure out why. Because the last guy that flew it didn't tighten the oil cap, and nobody looked after he flew it, you know. So, or we also always have someone usually around, right? If you're uncomfortable, someone's uncomfortable. Hey, Ryan, this is kind of like what you had going on last week. Go out there and see if this is what's going on, or if it's something different, if I got to send somebody over, if I've got to come over. So, communication, because I hear that a lot from a lot of different people, you know, not even just here. It's like, well, that's been going on for 2 months. Well, how are we supposed to know about it? You know, and then we all look stupid. So, well, that always did that. You know, you take your car to the mechanic and like, okay, so we found this wrong and that wrong, and well, that always did that. That light was on already, you know. So, well, I'm going to go back and put that airplane back together. If anybody needs anything, anybody's curious, I'll be over there. I have to take all my props back, because believe it or not, all these are good parts still, with the exception of that. This is worth something. I don't know, maybe $400 or $500. We'll send it out and see if it's cost effective to have it fixed. These are worth a fortune. This one's no good because the shaft is bad. But I mean, these are for that engine that we've got set.
All right, thanks, Randy.
Yeah, thank you.